Representative Tim Burchett from Tennessee said, if they would release the things that I've seen, you would stay up at night worrying about this stuff. Welcome back to Shared Unknowns. So, Nick, this week I've got 3 stories for you, but the first 2 are related to the U.S. government, so I'm going to knock those out first. And I want to preface by saying it is a little surreal to get excited or to hear this kind of information right now when it's connected to an administration that is under so much pressure from so many directions and having such a credibility problem and such trouble delivering on any of the promises or truths that we need them to. So I'd ask the audience, whether wherever you are on the spectrum of this, to keep in mind that these are incredible things for us to hear within the community, but there is a big credibility problem before we get our hopes up too high. But let me lead in with 46 videos, 11 days, and 1 deadline. On March 31st, Representative Paulina Luna, the Chair House Task Force on Declassification of Federal Secrets, sent a formal letter to Secretary of War Pete Hegseth demanding that 46 specific classified UAP video files are delivered by April 14th. The letter cites whistleblower testimony that Arrow holds unreleased footage. Analysts note that the list's use of exact file designations and operational call signs implies inside knowledge of Arrow's holdings. Through that inference goes beyond the letter themselves. Now, there are some notable items that have been requested. A 2023 F-16 shoot down of a UAP over Lake Huron that a lot of us are aware of.
Oh, yeah.
There was also a 2022 4-UAP formation over Iran. 2021 instant acceleration event in Syrian airspace. Spherical objects entering and exiting the water near a U.S. submarine. All of this follows Trump's February 19th executive order directing UAP file release. Hegseth has claimed he's committed to it. Recently, Vice President J.D. Vance says he's obsessed with the idea of these files and the information that's contained within. And lastly, I'd say that Representative Tim Burchett from Tennessee said, if they would release the things that I've seen, you would stay up at night worrying about this stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
What does it feel like? You know, I'm here in the United States. You're over in the UK. You're watching what's happening in the world with our country, and now, and we've also got this that we're talking about. What's that like?
Yeah, it feels like you're watching one of those classic sitcom shows from the US, you know, is the best way I can describe it. Like, you kind of you're just riding the roller coaster, you know, seeing where it'll go across the pond. I mean, to be fair, though, it is, as you mentioned the top of the show, you know, the credibility is in question. But it's also kind of interesting and exciting at the same time. Like,
yeah.
If you could even imagine having these conversations 20 years ago, you'd think you're insane, to be honest, in the best of ways, you know. But for some reason, one way or another, we are having those conversations now. And they seem to get weirder in every different angle, you know. Infighting in government organizations to, he said this, she's going to say that, and he's going to do that. And, you know, I suppose in the grand scheme of things is actions speak louder than the words, you know. Deadlines have come and gone before, and promises have come and gone before. In a sense, even though this is all new and exciting, we've kind of been here for many, many years. And really, my thoughts and opinions on this is like, we just need to know what the ending is, you know. It's the classic of How I Met Your Mother, you know. It took them how many seasons to meet the mother? You know.
Yeah.
You're kind of always waiting for that moment, you know, that oh, okay, so that's kind of How I Met Your Mother, you know. And will we ever get that? I have no idea, honestly.
Yeah.
As you said, the credibility is in question, and these officials, whether they're doing it for their own professional prowess, I suppose, or, you know, are they actually generally trying to disclose the truth? We don't know, you know. So I think it really is, time will tell, and proof is in the pudding with if these 46 videos do eventually get released. And if they do get released, great, you know, that's 46 new hopefully very credible videos of UAP encounters. And if they don't get released, then I suppose we're back to square one with this. So, with all these things, it's really, I'd rather not know about them and then them just release them than say, hey, publicly, we're going to do this in however 11 days, I think you said.
Right.
I'd rather not know for 11 days and say, hey, we're mic drop moment. There's 46 new videos popping. I'd rather them sort it out behind the scenes first and just tell us about them. Like, I don't really, it doesn't really solve the public any purpose to know that maybe in 11 days we'll get 46 videos because we
I feel
might
like
not.
I'm surprised that there's a single working mic left in the UFO community, because we are constantly dropping the mic. 2 weeks from now, there will be a great announcement. Disclosure is here. All of these things are it's kind of a recycled thing. But I have to say, though I'm pessimistic, the infrastructure here of administration and things on the Hill haven't completely fallen apart. The government marches on, so I shouldn't apply such a broad brush across this. These people are still trying to do their jobs and trying to declassify that stuff, and I think that it really leads us into the next part that kind of holds that up a little bit, and that's that. So on March 18th, the White House registered Alien.gov, during a federal funding lapse that halted all new government registrations. The White House quietly registered Alien.gov and Aliens.gov. Now, both point to Cloudflare. Neither links to anything, and the White House response has been stay tuned. Again, we're kind of back to that credibility gap a little bit, because with this administration, it wouldn't surprise me if the monetization of an idea came up before the idea of the truth. And their memeing of very serious subjects in the past has been crass, to put it lightly. So the question again lies in, who did this? Where did the origin come from? What are the motives? I don't know if we'll ever find that out, but it does seem to support this idea that we are moving towards a government disclosure, a real government disclosure of some kind.
Of some kind. I think that's the thing. The question is how deep is that disclosure going to go? I mean, with aliens.gov and alien.gov, that's really hitting the nail on the head. About what it could be about. Interesting. It's not UAP.gov or UFOs.gov or NHI.gov. It is literally aliens.
Well, you've brought up a good point. Is it possible that we're all conflating this with the UAP agenda, when in fact these websites are regarding immigration and ICE and things like that? So that's a good point.
Exactly. Again, in the UAP or the UFO space, we love putting two and two together straight away, and before anything's happened. So I think, I again, like with the 46 videos in 11 days, I think this is something where we're just going to have to wait. And with the context of, obviously, in America, alien being someone who isn't from the country, and with everything, as you said, going on with ICE, just to reiterate that, it could be something to do with that. It mightn't be nothing to do with the whole UAP disclosure stuff. But we'll see. Honestly, we'll see. It is kind of exciting in that sense, because I suppose one of the topics that have been brought up more and more in specifically the NHI alien side of things, non-human intelligence, is they're not just extraterrestrials, they're interdimensional beings, they're people from the future. Whereas if this is to do with UAP disclosure, obviously aliens, it might just be extraterrestrial, just being very direct with that. It might not be NHI, it might be we're just dealing with aliens, potentially.
I did miss one point, and that is in the stay tuned message, there was an alien emoji from the official White House account.
Well, I mean, that really does.
I guess that I missed that, and that would have been good to know at the beginning. But I think that kind of wraps that up for us. So aliens.
I think so. Yeah.
An alien emoji.
God, disclosure happening with an alien emoji. What a world we're living in.
Well, that's a whole nother show. But there's a lot of data out there that says that thinks that our language will move in cycles, and that we will end back up at hieroglyphics. And
That's what I
so,
was thinking. Yeah.
yeah, the question is was there a cycle before that ended up at hieroglyphics? Are we looking at the tail end, which
Yeah.
again, another show,
Another
another
show. Yes.
stew of ideas.
Yeah. Although a bright green alien emoji, I don't think anyone's used that in history before.
Not from whitehouse.gov.
No. No. Exactly. I'm sure there'll be a few alien emojis on Alien.gov as well. To be honest, with the way things are going. But yeah, it's interesting because I think I saw some news related to that, and this is like very early stage news, so I don't have much to go on. But according to a journalist, Rosh Coulthard, there's a story going around at the moment that there's going to be a commemorative coin to kind of promote the limited disclosure apparently going to happen this summer. Now, this is kind of a very new news story, and there's only been a couple of mentions, but Rosh Coulthard has mentioned on X, the platform, that this is a true story. He can confirm he has heard things about a commemorative coin being a part of the disclosure happening.
Can I assume this would be a government-sponsored commemorative coin?
Yes, exactly. Yes,
Okay.
yeah. And bet your uncle it'll be straight. Donald Trump's face will be on the one side, and then probably a UAP or an alien will be on the other side. And also, apparently, Christopher Sharp at Liberation Times is also, that's his read on the situation as well. So, a couple of sources potentially confirming that there is a coin that's going to happen. Mm-hmm. I mean, the grand scheme of things, a coin's a coin, isn't it? But, bet your uncle if, I think I said that twice now, that, if this does happen around this time, that coin's going to be worth something in 1,000 years' time, with or without space.
All the generational wealth that will be made off the commemorative coin.
Exactly. Yeah, at least it's not going to be an NFT or something like that.
Yeah, there you go. It's something you can trade in a post-apocalyptic.
Exactly. Yeah. Just, when the EMPs have gone off. No, it's all good.
Can't help it.
So yeah, that was just so yeah. It seems there are systems and things getting set up, and of course, I suppose the other big elephant in the room, which was mentioned before, is this is all happening around the time that there's a Hollywood blockbuster coming out called Disclosure Day. And it feels like with all these breadcrumbs of news stories, whether it's aliens.gov, the commemorative coin, or these potential videos coming out, it's all kind of happening around the same time as this film dropping. So again, I don't want to connect too many dots because it all could just be very coincidental, but some things sometimes are just not that coincidence, and they're all planned and plotted. So it'd be interesting come June what else has come up between now and then, because I feel like this story is only going to get weirder before at least we have some level of disclosure. At least.
I was talking to a friend who does marketing for a pretty large company the other day, and they said when we got to this point, they said, don't put it past the Don Drapers of the world to have seen what's coming and what's going on and to be capitalizing on it. So they said probably about 20% of what we're all seeing is just the fact that marketing knows that a monetization stream exists now.
Yes, exactly. No, you're completely right there. So yeah, we will see. Speaking of which, slightly different subject, the Sphinx of the Giza pyramids. Apparently, there has been a couple of researchers from Italy who have maybe found a buried one near the Giza plateau, which is very interesting. Apparently, it alleges to be about 108 feet. They've apparently found precise correlation between the Sphinx that we know of and the Sphinx underground. So yeah, it's interesting. No, this is kind of very, very kind of early kind of information coming out. But apparently the symmetry, the size, the shape, where it is, they're about 80% certain that this is another Sphinx. Now, obviously, what state it is in underground is one thing. But again, it's one of those things where if we think it is, can we go and look at it, please, and not just debate it for 50 years? And is it there? Isn't it there? I think that's one level one issue I do have with some archaeology is there's so much debate going around, but you can stop that debate and all those arguments by just going there and researching it and looking at it. So, but there's been many mysterious pyramids around the world, or kind of artifacts that people have seen using LiDAR and all of these stuff. But like, at the end of the day, one researcher says one thing, one researcher says the other thing. Just go down and have a look. I know it's not as simple as that because you need permission and all that stuff. But if you believe there is, with data and research, there is a second Sphinx there, then let's at some point hopefully go and see what it is, And it'll be interesting, I think, just to see if it does exist and if it is similar to the one that we have at the moment, and if it's not, how old is it?
Yeah, it's pretty incredible the amount of recent discoveries that are being reported out of the Giza Plateau, using especially non-invasive techniques. But what's even more interesting is that I don't know what the current status quo is right now, but at the time that Zahi Hawass was controlling or in charge and influencing the antiquities boards, or the people in charge of that over there, he was almost completely against non-invasive technology, and there is this definitive sense around the top Egyptologists in the country that they really don't want to really look any further. To them, they say they have the answers. We know who built the pyramids. We know why they built the pyramids, and we know how old they are. So hopefully we'll see a sea change with that leads back more to fundamental science of investigate it.
No, exactly. It's funny you mentioned his name because he's already called it fake news.
Certainly.
So yeah.
Well, there's got to be a middle ground between Graham Hancock and Zahi Hawass. And I mean that with all respect to Graham Hancock. He's done amazing work, but he's made some speculations that are worth investigating. And the fact that we can't investigate those things, even with non-invasive means, says that the people holding back have an agenda. So
yeah. Exactly. So yeah, I mean, again, hopefully we get more information on that. As you said, the Giza Plateau has been a very interesting area these last couple of years, with obviously using a lot of new technology to scan it and to find potentially new things, new underground things, whether that's underneath the pyramids or potentially, this new Sphinx. And it just makes, you can think about it, like how much are we like missing that's obvious, underground around the world, Of course, there's been a lot of fixation on Egypt for obvious reasons, but you look at like the Amazon and the Mayas and all those types of places where we know there are lost cities just waiting to be discovered, and it's just when will that happen? Because I think that'll happen at some point, but of course the Mayas and the rainforests are a little bit more dangerous than Egypt to start digging around, but in its own way. But yeah, it will be fascinating. I think you're right. We do definitely need a balance between kind of the polar opposites of the mainstream, what I'd call classic historians, who I think we've discovered exactly what it is and that's it, to the more kind of, you could call them controversial, but the different thinking, the outside the box thinking researchers who are trying to actually question, is this right or is this wrong? These things don't make sense. And, I think there is definitely something, and we do need a middle ground where someone can actually go and unbiased either way to see what it is, one way or another. So, yeah, again, hopefully we hear more about that, and it just isn't, hopefully it's just not one of those news stories that is exciting in the moment and you never hear from again.
I'll have to bring the information to a different episode, but I've been caught up recently in the Green Sahara and the archaeological and other information that's coming out of those ideas and the reinterpretation and retranslation of some of Plato's works. A lot of people don't realize that the Pillars of Hercules, aka the Straits of Gibraltar, weren't even called that until the last 1,000 years or so, and that there are numerous locations of the Pillars of Hercules that indicated Hercules' trials throughout the ancient world. And by following those, one of the most ancient temples, and I think the oldest Egyptian temple ever found, is far to the west, near Libya, near the edges of what would have been the riverine Green Sahara. And there's some indication showing that there may have been a large-scale migration out of that area as the environment collapsed to to the Nile Valley. Some of the most ancient myths say that the first pharaohs found their culture and that they were descended from something older, and that's debatable. But I think it's all incredible.
No, it is.
Probably
It
one of my
is.
favorite things to research.
No, definitely, definitely. I think it's just a very fascinating part of the world and a very fascinating part of history. And we just, yeah, it's one of the things where you just want to read and know more, because we don't know that much in the grand scheme of things. Speaking of not, oh, go on.
I've only got one more story, and it's on consciousness. And I don't know if you want to save that for the end. Do you want to go ahead?
Mine's kind of similar, to be honest.
Okay.
Kind of consciousness in a sense. So there's been an article that I've been reading, which is very, very interesting, and it does relate to consciousness in a way. I don't want to call it a disease or an illness because it's not, but there's a thing where people have, it's called hyper superior autobiographical memory, or HSA, and it's about where incredibly rare, but it's basically where you can go back in your memories and literally physically, basically you can travel back in time in your own thoughts, and you can project exactly where you are, and it's just like, it's like having a photographic memory, but that can travel in time, and you can go back and remember every single hair follicle or mole on that person that you walk down the street, and you can basically just relive those experiences. And there's
almost like full access to the subconscious memory. It sounds
exactly
like.
Yes.
Wow.
And so this 17-year-old, they've been doing a study on her because she's basically told her family about she has these effectively what you call powers. And the best way she can describe it is going back in time and going back to like a childhood memory, and toys being there without any like dust on it because it's not aged, and like she can basically just go back anywhere, anytime she wants, and it's like Back to the Future, I suppose, but you can live your own kind of past at any time you want. And you think, if the brain has the ability to do that, then you connect that with human consciousness ability, and that's kind of one to bring it up because it's very, very interesting and very related to a lot of human consciousness studies where you're going very deep into the mind and seeing and feeling things, but whereas these people can literally relive days of their past anytime they want, which is very, very interesting, I feel like.
I practice a meditation where the intent is different, but the results are similar. You relax and go into a regular meditation, then at a certain point you purposefully imagine times from the past or locations, and you kind of almost lucidly dream within them and search for detail. But I've never I can still find my childhood home in my memories but there are parts of it that aren't as bright as the others, that aren't as detailed, where the memory kind of ends, and there's no I couldn't tell you what a thing that my eyes saw that had words on it said if I didn't directly read it and it affected me. I don't have those. Where's that stored? I think that's the big question is this teenager, is this a question of storage and decoding?
Yeah.
And is it local?
Exactly.
That's still, that's kind of what brings me into my last one. I think they're so linked. That my title to share was Consciousness During Clinical Death. The data is getting harder to dismiss.
Yeah.
A 2026 peer-reviewed trial across 13 hospitals found biomarker evidence that consciousness may persist during cardiac arrest. A separate UVA paper argues the leading neurophysiological model still can't explain what NDE survivors actually report. This is really close to the heart for me, no pun intended. Yep. Because I don't call it an NDE, I call it an OBE, because I don't think no one told me I was going to die. And that was an issue. But when I had a stent placed in my heart, my consciousness left my body and watched the rest of the procedure from the ceiling of the room, and then reported activity that was novel to a procedure like that when I woke up, and then discussed it with the doctors and the nurses and kind of confirmed that what I saw I couldn't have seen, and it was not a thing I could have guessed. This paper did a double-blind multi-center trial across 13 hospitals in the UK and Spain. Their methodology was stimuli delivered to cardiac arrest patients governed by the methodology is extraordinary and contested. Stimuli delivered to cardiac arrest patients were governed by quantum entanglement synchronized with a 127-qubit IBM Brisbane supercomputer.
Whoa.
Key findings were biomarker models explained up to 56% of NDE recall variants. NDEs correlated positively with neuroplasticity during arrest. This is kind of above my pay grade here. The authors conclude consciousness may persist, quantum-bound, detectable, and not yet defeated. The quantum entanglement framing will draw scrutiny, but the trial cleared peer review as a registered double-blind protocol. I'll give you a quote. NDEs present us with data that are difficult to explain by current physiological or psychological models. And that was Dr. Bruce Grayson, UVA Division of Perceptual Studies.
Interesting.
We're getting closer to recognizing and admitting that consciousness is non-local, that the physics and the experience are connected.
Yeah, beyond our human vessel in that sense. Yeah, no, it is very, very interesting, and out-of-body experiences, near-death experiences, and even something I didn't hear until recently, shared death experiences as well, which I've been fascinated by. Shared death experiences. They're almost like I don't know if you know too much about them, but shared death experiences. The story that I told, I'm not going to name any names, but when they had a relative dying, they were in the hospital, and they were, in their mind, they were sitting next to their relative having a full-on conversation. But actually, their relative died about 20 seconds ago, and for them and their relative that they were talking to, like, hours had gone by. But, it was mere seconds had gone by between their passing. And, of course, their family were just, like, the person just sitting down talking to their dying relative. It basically, for their family, it's like they're just frozen in time. They weren't doing or saying anything. They were just there. So in that sense, it's not an individual consciousness. It's two consciousnesses connecting together beyond just the human body. And I feel like that's very interesting, because a lot of this near-death experience and this out-of-body experiences are individual-based. In terms of individual, it's your conscience, but consciousness, I should say. But your consciousness. But with a shared death experience, it's multiple, and that's a whole different ballgame in the grand scheme of things. How do two consciousnesses connect outside the body in a moment? It's very, very fascinating, and as you said, the closer we get, the more proof or the more data or the more evidence suggests that it's just beyond our borders. It's not local. It's something other.
When I was at the Monroe Institute, one of the things that the group projects that the Experiencer group tried together was group astral projection. And we were all up at the main house in our little bed cubicles doing hemisync, and the idea was we were going to project our consciousness down in and around the area where we would have a bonfire each night.
Yeah.
And there were a handful of us and this, I describe it like this, other people might describe it more directly, but there were a handful of us, myself included, that felt like that occurred, that we had projected there, and that we had seen other people and made gestures and or tried to communicate with them in some sense. And those same people all claimed positivity, claimed positive. I experienced something similar. And yes, what did you do? Or what did you see me do? But again, we can't, even at that level where we feel we experienced it, we're sharing an experience, we're relating the same details, still no way to prove it to each other or to prove it to anybody that didn't also feel it or perceive it. It's fascinating to me. And I think it links over to things like, I want to be careful because I'm not condoning illegal drug use but people who have overdosed on ketamine, their subjective experience seems to outstrip the ability to hold those memories storage-wise, at least. How do you get that bandwidth to have I'm making up numbers here, but terabytes of experience in an instant. It can't all be biochemical markers. It can't, is it a perceptional trick of the mind? I think that's what a lot of psychologists would say, but
Yeah.
people doing deep level DMT research are having co-experiences as well.
Gotcha, yeah.
I can't wait to see where this research leads. I think ultimately this comes back to is it's what we in simulation theory we call a base reality. A place that we're projecting from.
And what happens to consciousness in a whole, where more and more people can connect with each other in that on that side of things. For me, I suppose a simple way to explain it to people that don't know too much about this is like what happens when AI starts talking together. When they start merging together, when they start plotting together, they'll just grow more and more powerful. It kind of almost feels like consciousness, when it's in a group environment, it has that kind of same reaction, like you grow together. And if you've got a whole human race of 7+ billion people all doing it, then that'd be a very interesting day as well.
I'd like to think it would lead to greater understanding.
I would hope so, honestly. Yes, exactly.